No, 23. Lost child. Parents hear what sounds like their child crying hysterically behind a locked door in their house. They don't have a child. When the door eventually opens, only a toy with the child's name lies on the floor in front of it. This is one of those stories that is apparently so famous that there are thousands of similar tales from all over the world about parents hearing their children crying in the middle of the night from behind a closed door only to open it and find no child in there at all. This story has appeared in countless books and TV shows about scary things that go bump in the night. It has been told and retold by thousands of people claiming it happened to them or someone they know. And yet nobody can seem to agree on exactly what it is that's going on here. I've heard some versions where the parents think they actually do have a child, but when they check on them, they aren't there. But I think the most common telling of this story goes something like this. Imagine you're just settling down for bed. You've got your pajamas on. Your teeth are brushed and you're snuggled up ready to go. Then you hear it, the unmistakable sound of a child crying. You recognize that sound because you have kids of your own, but you don't. You and your partner look at each other in confusion. Where could it be coming from? The crying continues and you get up to go investigate. You head into the hallway and start listening to the various doors to try to locate the source of the noise. It seems to be coming from your daughter's old bedroom. You haven't been in this room for years. It was your daughter's until she went off to college last month. The thought of her crying in there makes you sad, but you knock on the door anyway to ask if everything's all right. She doesn't answer. Concerned, you try the doorknob, but it's locked. You call out to her again, but there's still no answer. The crying gets louder now, and you feel compelled to break in, but the door is sturdy. You can't find a way in. Finally, the crying stops, and you're left in silence. You and your partner exchange a worried glance, and then you try the door again. It's unlocked. You push it open slowly and step inside. There's nothing there. Your daughter isn't there. The room is empty. Then you notice it. On the floor in front of the door is a stuffed animal. It's a teddy bear, dirty and worn in all the right places. It's clearly your daughter's favorite childhood toy, the same one she took with her when she went to college. But how did it get here? The last place she was seen was in the other room. How did it get here? And what was it doing in front of the door? Was your daughter really crying in there, or was it something else? And what could it possibly want? In my mind, there are two ways this story could go. The first version is that this is a classic case of a parent losing their mind. Think about it. If you hear what sounds like your child crying in another part of the house, wouldn't you naturally assume they were calling out for help? Wouldn't you rush to see if they were okay? And wouldn't you immediately panic if they weren't in their bed? And if you found an old toy in front of the door, wouldn't you naturally assume that your daughter was somehow in danger? Of course you would. It's only natural. So what if the whole thing was a trick of the mind? What if it wasn't your daughter crying in the other room at all, but rather some random noise that sounded like a child crying? That would explain why you couldn't find her anywhere in the house and why you assumed that she was in danger. You heard something that sounded like a child crying, so you assumed it was your daughter. And what if it didn't happen in the middle of the night either? What if it was just some random time when you and your wife were relaxed and ready to fall asleep? If you'd fallen asleep earlier that day, maybe you could have dreamed that you heard your daughter crying, which would explain why you felt compelled to rush to her aid even though she was supposedly already in her room. But what about the teddy bear? It does seem weird that a stuffed animal would just suddenly appear in the middle of the night in front of an empty bedroom door. But think about it. If it was just a dream, you probably didn't sleep very well. After all, dreams about your kids usually aren't happy ones. So you might have gotten up for a glass of water or to use the restroom, not realizing that you had left the front door open or a window unlocked. And during the night, the wind might have blown your daughter's teddy bear into the room and onto the floor, where it stayed until morning. The second way this story could go is that it isn't a story at all, but a memory, albeit one that is fragmented and incomplete. Memories aren't like videos that you can just rewind and watch again. They're more like puzzles that you have to put together based on the pieces that you have. Sometimes these pieces come from our own experiences, but sometimes they come from other people, too. Maybe you've talked to your friends or your family about times when they lost their children. Or maybe you've read or heard other stories about children being lost or kidnapped. These outside influences can shape the memories that we form and lead us to believe things that never actually happened. For example, if someone told you that they heard what sounded like their child crying, but when they went to check on them, they realized they didn't have a child, you might assume that the person who told you the story meant that they really did hear their child crying, but for some reason they don't remember that detail. But what if the truth is actually the other way around? What if they didn't hear anything at all? In fact, the original story might have been that the parents checked on their child and found that they were missing, but they couldn't remember that detail, so they filled in the blank with something else, making it seem like they heard their child crying instead of just disappearing into thin air. And that brings us back to the teddy bear. If this is the case, then the parents might have remembered hearing their child crying, but they couldn't remember anything else. So they filled in the blanks with the details that made the most sense to them. Maybe they remembered seeing a teddy bear in their daughter's old room, so they decided that that's where the crying must have come from. But in reality, it was just a stuffed animal that had been left behind. And finally, let's not forget about the element of suggestion. If you were told this story without any context or background information, you might naturally assume that the parents were simply trying to cover up the fact that they killed their child. But what if they didn't kill their child at all? What if the child simply ran away from home after getting into an argument with their parents? In this scenario, the parents might have been so ashamed for whatever reason that they tried to cover up the situation and make it seem like their child was never even there in the first place. Hearing what sounded like your child crying behind a locked door in the middle of the night is enough to scare anyone. But what if it wasn't your child at all? What if it was just a random noise that you misinterpreted? Or what if it was a repressed memory that you couldn't quite put together? Either way, the teddy bear is a clue that you shouldn't ignore. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. If you want to watch another video just like this one, then click right here.